Trucks have just been added to Race Room, so in this video I'm going to jump in, see what they handle like, how they compare to trucks in other racing simulators that we played, and I'm also going to tell you some of the features and things that you need to be aware of if you intend to drive the trucks in Race Room. These vehicles have some different and somewhat weird characteristics and settings that you just don't find in anything else. So fasten your seatbelts and let's check out Race Room's new trucks. If you click the like button and subscribe to this channel, you'll be 6% more attractive, scientifically proven without any evidence. So, first thing is that if you do intend to buy anything on Race Room, make sure that you buy VRP through the Race Room store before then buying content. It's by far the cheapest way to get content in Race Room. And also be aware that they often do Black Friday sales where you can get basically everything in Race Room for like 40, 50 quid. So, can be an absolute bargain, especially if you're on European times and you can take advantage of the Race Room ranked servers, which have some absolutely fantastic racing on them. But in terms of the trucks, these are actually surprisingly fun to drive. But before I get into drive them, the settings that you really need to be aware of specifically is to do with gearing and the fact that these vehicles have a sprinkler on them, specifically to cool the brakes down. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you bind brake water spray, and that allows you to deploy up to 200 litres. Well, you have 200 litres, but you can deploy it gradually of water onto the brakes. So if they start overheating or as they get warm, you deploy the water and things don't overheat, and you maintain nice brake capacity, which is always useful in a vehicle. Although I tend to like just using the car in front as a brake. Now, something that is very different and requires a bit of mental manoeuvring is the way the gearing works with this, because it's a 16-speed gearbox on these vehicles. Now, if you've bound your H-pattern shifter normally to Race Room, you don't need to worry about changing any of that stuff. Leave your gearbox bindings in 1 to 8 or whatever you've done in your gearbox exactly the same. But what you do need to do is make sure you bind a button for toggle gear range and toggle gear split, and you'll want to make sure that the gear split and range buttons are somewhere quite accessible on your wheel or right next to your gearbox. Right, we're at the track. Here we are, Brands Hatch. We're going to be starting in 12th place. Before we get driving, we're going to go to the car setup, and I personally recommend making the steering lock a little bit higher than the default. If you don't make it higher, then you'll find yourself soaring away at the wheel, almost as if you were a truck driver. I'm lazy. I like faster steering. If you want the full pirate ship experience, by all means move your steering lock down and enjoy your 1,000,000 degrees of rotation. But I like to turn it up. I like it snappy. Also, I find with the defaults with this, you moving the brake bars a bit further back makes the trucks turn into the corner a bit easier. And more fun to drive. I find them very understeery with the default setups. Though it's definitely worth saying these do not drive like cars. And the approach to going fast in these is more like trying to race a cross-channel ferry around a racetrack than a remote controlled car. So don't necessarily apply what you know from race cars to this. I don't think it all really does apply, which is the fun challenge and actually the enjoyment of having something like this in a simulator. It's good to mix things up. Right, let's get on the grid. Let's go into first gear. As you can see, if we push the button here, we've got high, then it'll skip through it. But we're going to push the button, start off in first H, so it's actually second gear in reality. And the way you start is you have to just rock it through the gears. Monster grip, monster power, and then we're going to have to go to high and then go back to first on the H pattern and then go back through 4 gears. It's absolutely mental. It's a right brain teaser when you first try it, but it's a fun challenge, as I say, and you can enjoy the joy of the challenge of learning to gear shift in a lorry or truck whilst also destroying the natural habitat of small animals. So that's always fun, isn't it? So we're going to go... Well, actually, we seem to be... 7H seems to be alright here, actually. On a lot of tracks, what you find, and what I found, is that really it's got so much power in 7th and 8th gear that you basically just leave it in 7th gear or 8th gear through most of the track, and it's got enough torque to power it through the corners, and you don't have to change gear unless you're, apart from the race start, coming out of pits, or very occasionally where there's really tight corners. Actually, Brands Hatch does have quite a few tight corners where I think we probably do want to be going down to 7th at times. But other than that, you're just keeping the high gears and enjoy balancing the ferry around the race circuit. Now, if you've got a LED flag box, which I'll put this on the screen here. So these are actually on Black Friday sale at the moment. It's 3D Sim Gear LED flag box. They're really nice. They sent me this one, so just a shill warning there. But they are actually really nice. You can see here that the flag box is showing that we are actually in gear 16 there. And so the flag box is showing the actual gear we are in. The flag box is saying 16. The game is saying 8. And my Fanatec physical shifter is in 4th. I don't know which reality to believe, but you start to get your head around it after a while. I still haven't got my head around it. I don't think I ever will, but I think you get your head around it after a while. As you see here, when we go down the straight, we can only hit 160, and that's because the top speed of these vehicles are capped at 160, which I think is ludicrous. I don't think there should be a speed cap as part of the regulations of this race thing. It's not a race room thing. It's literally the truck racing regs. Terrible regulations. I want to see one of these trucks go 300 miles an hour because I think it's got the power to do it. Yeah, so you don't worry too much about the gearing if you think, oh, it's why am I not getting any faster, why am I hitting the limiter. It's a literal fixed limit as per the rules. I think that's enough of explaining the general basics. Oh yeah, the water button. Let's deploy some water. As you see, we've got 200 litres of water at the start, and we can deploy that if the brakes start to fade or start to overheat, and get rid of some of that water. I guess you have so much power in a truck that it doesn't really matter that you're carrying 200 kilograms of ballast. Nicely though, what I find with this is it actually makes me feel like I'm doing glider flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you fly gliders, you take off with water ballast that you can then deploy for various, depending on what you want to do. Weirdly, trucks and gliders have something in common. Who would have thought it? So, all those features and components said and done, I have to say, when it comes to the actual handling of these trucks, they're really, really actually quite fun, and I think they're really well done in Race Room. When you drive these trucks, or similar trucks, when I've driven them in, say, Automobilista 2, I find they're like, don't have that initial bite, and they're way too floaty, whereas in Race Room they actually have a really good bite of the track, really nice progressive slip, fantastic force feedback for communicating the rear, popping out on the brake and the load, and also nice force feedback for when you push through understeer and the tyre cocks is vibrating. Really well done. To me, these just feel way more solid and cohesive in this compared to the, as I say, the AMS2 trucks and the most recent trucks that have been driven. They also, I would say, come across as more realistic than any of the truck mods I've played in Assetto Corsa. This, like, genuinely comes across as if this could be, someone could have released a truck simulator, you know, the official truck racing simulator, and if it was like this, you'd be like, oh, that makes sense. This is, if you're into trucks, this comes across as absolutely fantastic, spot on. Or it seems spot on. I mean, I've never driven a bloody truck, have I? I mean, I've not even sat in a truck, but it comes across as really nice. It's just pleasant to drive, which is that's a big compliment for me, because I'm not really a fan of ginormous lumbering vehicles. I do like the challenge, I like the unique nature of this, but generally I'm more sort of like a radically type driver rather than, as I say, like a cross-channel ferry driver. It's the same with aeroplanes. I much prefer light aircraft, gliders, small helicopters, you know, tiny aircraft rather than bloody 747s and what have you. But as I say, with this, what you find with these vehicles is the lumbering nature of them makes the braking actually quite interestingly tricky in terms of balancing the weight of the vehicle whilst braking, and really when it comes to really getting the most out of the braking. And again, that satisfaction of moving from the braking zone of the corner to the acceleration zone of the corner, and doing that in a way which is most effective to speed. You find with these trucks, the really different thing with them is because of the absolute insanity monster power that they have, you really have to be careful when you when you put the power down with the accelerator. Not in terms of you just spinning on the spot and losing it, but you actually have a really good amount of control and ply to counter steer the rear end. But what happens is you're putting so much energy into that system that the whole truck just wants to slide off the track. So when you're racing and you're going through some of the corners on certain tracks where you're both powering through a corner, you have these awesome like truck slides where you're all sliding out of the corner with angle on the throttle, and it's quite compelling, surprisingly, as someone like me that doesn't generally like large vehicles. If you ever get the chance to see one of these in real life, it is actually surprisingly spectacular. Last time I was at Donington in real life, one of these was doing testing, and I stood on the pit wall, and seeing this go down the start-finish line at full pace a metre away from you is mind-bending. Unfortunately, they told us to get off the pit wall and we had to stay away from the track. I don't know what they were trying to hide, or maybe it's just unsafe to be that close to a lorry pushing that much air out of the way. But absolutely great. I say, if you've got kids and there was a truck race event going on, take kids to see truck racing. I think that they would probably enjoy it in many ways more than they would car racing. And let's face it, anything's more entertaining than modern Formula 1. Sick Formula 1 burn there. Boy, just lost. That's half our viewership gone. Oh, there you go. Give it a bit of welly. As I say, it's really fun putting on too much power with these trucks, and the way it slides out of the corner, and that goes hand in hand with Race Room's force feedback that really sort of it corrects the steering as you would expect a vehicle to correct steering. It stays in line with the truck and does it in a nice detailed way. It's not overactive, it doesn't overcompensate. It still feels like there's quite a lot of dampener going on with this vehicle, as you'd expect from such a huge vehicle, but it all just makes sense, really. I think they've absolutely nailed it, really. I haven't played AMS 1 for a while, and I from memory I know AMS 1 trucks were absolutely fantastic, but I haven't played it enough to really compare it to this. But I think that would likely be the closest comparison in terms of if you were a big truck fan for truck racing. But compared to any of the other newer sims or new releases, this is my favourite embodiment of a truck, even better than the trucks in Euro Truck Sim. They need to put these in Euro Truck Sim and you could just bomb it around the roads. It'd be awesome. Come on, we've got a few laps to go. We're moving our way to forwards. Martin Asher here. Race Room has its AI named after sim racing people. Martin Asher, of course, does the wheel rims and the button stuff. Nice guy. Oh no! That's what I get for complimenting Martin Asher. He just banana peeled me. So that's something you have to watch out for in trucks, is accidentally two-wheeling it. You don't tempt the oh god, the centre of gravity. It's like driving a vehicle on top of the Eiffel Tower. The centre of gravity is not exactly low on these. Can't believe we recovered that. I was putting on a show for the crowd. That's cool. I think a flat spotted the wheels. We're getting like a vibration for that. That's awesome. Imagine a flat spotted lorry tyre. Yeah, we're getting a flat spot vibration, or I broke something. Let's go. We have one more lap here. Now the last thing to say, or 2 more laps, the last thing to really say is the audio. Let me give you some audio with me not talking. Again, I think Race Room have done a really... I'm being too complimentary in this. We'll do a negative Race Room video after this, but let's turn it up so you can listen to the audio, because I think it's really quite nice. That's really nice. You can literally hear the environmental collapse as you get on the throttle. Every centimetre of throttle application equals a few more habitats destroyed, a bit more forest dismantled, and a few more drowned villagers in a third world country. So that's nice. They've really embodied that audio, that grunty engine sound, but really nicely. They've got the tyre scrub sound, which if you see one of these in real life, that's something you'll be very aware of. And then you can hear the depth of sound for the transmission subtly there, and then the tyre skid sound as well, and the braking noise. It's super immersive. The audio, done a really good job. It doesn't feel canned. The only time the audio really breaks down on this truck is if you're parked, like you stalled it or something, which I mean I don't think you'd ever do that really, but if you park it and then you put it in a really high gear and you put your foot on the accelerator, it can make a weird crackling sound. But that situation doesn't really occur unless you do something really wrong, which isn't how I found out about that at all. I never do anything wrong. If you're driving properly and you're racing properly, absolutely great. So you can really hear that I'd pushed the brake too hard there and we're getting into a bit of a lock-up. You've got the hiss for the gear shift as well. Oh, also, graphically, I mean, a truck cockpit's a truck cockpit, but I think the cockpits look fine. There's nothing to like... there's nothing massively exciting about the cockpits. I've kind of zoomed on in, so I can't really see it that much. But the truck models, here we go, we finished. The truck models and the actual skins, you've got a whole grid there with all the different liveries on all the different vehicles. So it really makes it feel, if you're going to race with AI, it makes it feel like you're in a proper race. So all in all, I think Race Room have done an absolutely fantastic job with this truck. I was very surprised, as this is really not my type of vehicle that I would normally go for, and I think it's highly worth. I'd recommend getting it, especially if you've already got Race Room and you already like Race Room. It's kind of a no-brainer. Maybe they'll also do some ranked racing with it, which would be absolutely ludicrous. Again, to remind you, if you do plan to get Race Room, make sure to get VRRP from the Race Room store. It will save you money. I'll put a link in the description for that. And also remember that Race Room typically do a Black Friday sale where you can get VRRP for a massively reduced price. Basically means you can get the complete version of the game for like £30–40, which is if you were thinking about getting into Race Room, that could be a great way to get into it and get all the content and really enjoy it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, guys. Let me know what you think of the trucks if you've driven them, and in the comments. Till the next one, take care, happy tea drinking, and goodbye.